I went through 9/11 here, and I was in Boston when that happened. And if you know,
Right.
that's where the flights took off from, was Boston. So
Yes.
that airport is very dear to my heart because that's the airport I used to travel anywhere. I got the test done, and it was done incorrectly. And this is a
Yes.
big problem, Tarushi, that the test is being done incorrectly all over, not just here, all over,
So true.
because that swab has to go pretty far up your nose. I've known in my community as a little bit too noisy, and usually for a Muslim community, for well, now it's changing, of course, but in the standard diaspora of things, Muslim women who are very noisy are considered, troublemakers. But and now I'm sure you see in the news right now the Black Lives Matters
Yes.
movement is, it's always been there, but it's like now it's at a critical level.
Namaste, everyone, and welcome back to my podcast, Stories You Should Know by Miss T. The voice you just heard was of Farheen Raza Abbas, an American Muslim, mother of 3, and a COVID survivor. In this 2-part podcast, I talked to Farheen about her upbringing in the United States of America, the idea behind her podcast, Musings of a Modern Muslim, and her fight with COVID-19. This podcast was recorded on a Zoom call, so the audio quality might differ from the previous episodes. You can also watch this podcast on my YouTube channel. Just search for Tarushi Chaudhary and you will find it. This is episode 6, part 1.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to talk to someone from the other side of the world. We have to like kind of see what time is it, what time zones we are doing this. It's very
Yeah.
interesting.
This is a good time. It's actually about afternoon right now, so it's perfect. I mean, the kids are home, but iPads. Thank you, Steve Jobs, for inventing something that can keep the kids so busy and so
True.
quiet for so long.
And you're a mother of 3. That's a
Mother,
handful.
that's a handful. 3 boys, so I'm
3
outnumbered in
boys.
my house. I am every Sasuma's dream come true, and I really, I hate that. I hate it so much because I've always wanted girls. Me and my husband both really wanted a girl, like at least one. Like we're like, please
Wow.
one. And every time it was a boy, I know collectively all like elder mothers would get very happy, like, oh, you should be so happy, you're so blessed. And I'm like,
Nah.
this is nonsense. I want the girl. And my brother has 2 daughters, and I just look at them like, I'm gonna steal one of your children one day.
Just
Do you
exchange
want
kids.
I
Like,
want
give me your
exchange?
girls, take my boys.
I told him that. I was like, how about I exchange my 2-year-old for your 1-year-old? Let's just switch. And he's like, pagal ho gaya kya? And I was like, no. I was like, I just want one. I've actually talked about adopting with my husband. I was like, you know what? We could try to have another. But what if it's
Wow.
another boy? Nothing that I have nothing against boys, of course,
Of
but
course.
I was like,
But
I
3 is
just really
handful
want that.
now.
I
Yeah.
really want a girl. And I was like, told my husband, I was like, what if we adopt? Just there's so many little girls, especially mostly in a lot of countries, little girls are just given up for their gender.
True.
I was
True.
like, what's wrong with that? And I thought because him being an immigrant, I would think that he would be much more against it because of the upbringing he had. But he's actually like, no, it's a good thing to do, and our religion says it's a good thing to do, and the society likes it, and why not? So let's think about it. And if not that, then we would love to become foster parents eventually in the future. Just when our kids are gone and they're in their own lives,
Right.
then we can. We've been inspired by a lot of people who we've seen who are older, who take in at-risk youth to help them kind of have a base and then go on and have you know eventually get adopted by some other families. But we're like, we can be that that buffer family in between that helps them see that there are good people in the world. So yeah, we have very interesting conversations, not very standard conversations, but they're interesting.
But you have the meaningful conversation. I think what you're talking about is something very important. And you guys
Hmm.
make like a perfect team because you have the same kind of mindset. You want to do the same thing. So it kinds of make it all perfect.
Sometimes, some days I just want to like
Of
smack
course.
him all day.
Of course.
Most days I do want to just like, can you just be quiet, stop being so full of yourself.
Right. So, Fareen, when I saw you on internet, that's how I found you. I
Hmm.
found you in one of the podcast groups and I read about you. I heard your podcast. I got very interested on the fact that you emphasized on being an American Muslim and you
Hmm.
emphasized on telling people more about the community and the culture.
Hmm.
So I want to go back to the beginning. Like, from where
Sure.
were you from, and how was your upbringing? Where did you stay? Because I mean, you said in one of your podcasts, I think in all of your podcasts, that you were born there. Your kids are born there. You got married there. So you
Yeah.
are an American, but you still, trying to give out the message that okay, I am an American Muslim, and these are the teachings. You want to tell
Yeah.
people that there are a lot of
Hmm.
misconceptions that you want to clear. So let's go back to your schooling, and how
Okay.
was your upbringing?
Uh, First ever, I was in New York. So I grew up in New York and Boston, so the northeast part of the United States. And I had a lot of black friends and teachers and whatnot. So I never really saw them as different. It was like, okay, yeah, we're learning together. Um, my upbringing in my household, my mom is very traditional. So she's a standard Lucknow ki lady,
Right,
very Urdu speaking, all these proper ways of sitting, talking, being. I'm sure anyone in India who knows how Lucknow, that Nawabi soch, and how we have this
right.
way of talking, speaking, and sitting and
It's
pouring
called the
chai and
royalty. It's
it's
called the royalty.
it's the
Yeah,
royalty bit to it, and I think we're kind of full of it for ourselves. Sometimes we're like, we're so royal. And I know that she really tried to instill this type of thought in me and my siblings. She was like, not to be above anyone else, but you should have a way of speaking. My mom is the classic Indian lady married to a Pakistani guy. So my dad is Pakistani, born and raised in Karachi, and they got married. And his family, my dad is one of 11 siblings. You can imagine,
huh.
it's a big family. So
Yes,
very, very loud, boisterous Pakistani people. Very happy-go-lucky, just out and about. And they grew up in a metro city, as compared to my mom, who grew up in a very traditional town. And my mom is one of five girls, so it's like women's household. My grandfather was worried about girls being educated. My mom was educated in a time when mostly Muslim women were not being educated,
right,
because it was just not the thing to do. It was like, oh, what's the reason? They have to go and become housewives anyways. And even if they did, at least my grandfather, for his time, he was very forward thinking that no, all my five daughters have to have an education and have to be able to stand on their own 2 feet if ever needed. If not, then well and good. But if they ever need to, they have at least a degree or some sort of backing to fall back on. That it's important. So my mom has a degree in electrical engineering from Aligarh, which I mentioned, which I couldn't
Aligarh
remember for a moment.
University. Yes,
Yes, she has a degree from that. She never needed to use it because, of course, the way life ended up, she was married, and my dad had a good job. Then we moved to the U.S. and converting degrees in the U.S. even now and even back then is always just extra steps. And then she had two kids back to back, so that's a whole other level. But her upbringing was very much family focused, traditional family focused. You have to, be kind to yourself, your family, make sure that everything's taken care of. Eventually you'll run your own household and you'll have to keep all these things in check. Never have your kids complain, never have your spouse, the standard things you hear, which I know over the years she's also modified her thoughts. I mean, she grew up in a thought process that boys never have to do any work, but
right.
now she's definitely changed in that thought. She's like, no, husband and wife are equal. If the husband is doing dishes too, that's okay. So
Which must
luckily
have
my
been a
brother,
little difficult for her. Like, for the transition also must have been a little
it
difficult.
was,
But it's
yeah, it
great
was
that she's
actually more
doing it.
difficult
Yeah,
for my dad, I think, because my dad grew up in the very standard way, like no, ghar ke aadmi doesn't do anything. So
right,
now when he sees my brother actually helping his wife out, my bhabhi out, and just anything, he's like cute. But then I think also over the years they've come to this is the way. It's okay. We don't have any domestic help here. We don't have anyone to come and do anything. Even I mean, I consider myself lucky because I actually pay someone to come every 10 to 15 days just to clean my house. But that's also
right,
not, it's not cheap, and it's something that with three kids I'm like, if I can afford it, if God has blessed me with that much, I can.
right.
But many people are like, no, this is not something we want to do. So you have to just kind of, I'll speak a little bit of Hindi Urdu here, but like my mom always says, this is her. She's like, in America, औरत महारानी भी है और मैत्रानी भी है. So if you're two in
Wow.
one, you're everything. So you're both.
Right.
You're the maharani of your house, but you're also the metrani. So you have to do everything under the sun. So now, in that upbringing, I did want to get an education, and I had actually opportunities along my life to get even a better education, but because the standard thought process was that women don't need that kind of education to do anything, you have to ghar ki banna hai aakhir mein. So they even though my mom was educated herself, and I think also with the idea that in they're immigrants in this new country, everything was new to them. They had no idea. I mean, I think my mom said this is the first time moving to New York that she saw people of different colors. Even she never saw them, like she saw a few
There was
in
a
India,
big
but not
cultural difference and a
big
cultural
cultural
shock, to say.
major shock overload for
Right.
both of them. So I think they went to hyper protection mode. And I'm the oldest of four. So you can imagine the oldest being a girl. And then it's like, okay, we have to make sure nothing wrong happens. So they were my mom was very strict in our upbringing. In hindsight, it was good. It really definitely helped me because there were moments in my life that I can recall that I really could have gone down the wrong path with the
Right.
wrong crowd, wrong path, wrong habits or anything. But because I was so scared of her that I was like, forget it, don't want to do it. And then our mom was very when we were growing up and we were like in our middle school years, middle age, like 14, 15, when you're really rebellious, she did say, like, look, don't do anything. I'm gonna let you guys do things, but don't do anything that would make me you know जिसे कहते हैं ना कि शर्म ना जाए मुझे.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anything that
Make
would
me regret
embarrass
my
me.
upbringing,
Yes,
I think.
she's
Yeah,
like, if
yeah.
anything, just don't do anything that would make me feel regretful or feel ashamed to be your
Right.
mother. Yeah, and then after that, grew up. Mostly my life was, if you want to say, pretty uneventful because I was, growing up in a very, in a, two-parent family. That's the big problem now, and it has been many years, single parent home. So I'd be blessed with that, two-parent family. My dad was very loving, very, he's a big softie. He doesn't look like, if you see my dad's picture, everyone thinks he's the strict one, and everyone thinks my mom is the softie, and we're like, it's the complete opposite. My mom is the most toughest regimented army, general in the world. And then my dad is the biggest softie, like the biggest. So he was a very soft and loving guy. And so we grew up with seeing, and even though our parents had an arranged marriage, like it was the norm then, I mean, anyone with two eyes can tell that they just cannot live without each other. So we as kids make fun of them because, in our society, it's showing affection is not normal.
Right.
And even holding hands or hugging, I mean, kissing is beyond that, but like holding hands and hugging even is something that is not done. So whenever my parents have their anniversary, they like do these awkward hugs, and we're like, come on guys, you can do better.
Now you can do it.
Like, go for it. And they're like, be quiet. No. But you can tell that they have a very strong connection. And growing up in such a big family, because we had a lot of, like I said, my dad's one of 11, and a lot of them do live in New York and New Jersey. So we had a very big enclosed family structure in which, in all big events, weddings, Eids, graduations, whatever, we were all meeting the same people plus a few extra. So our upbringing is a little different than the standard American upbringing, where you don't have that much family around you. We had too much family. We had a lot of cousins. We had a lot of so and so and so and so's mothers visiting and so's aunt visiting. So you see all these people, and I think we grew up in a kind of a bubble where it's not normal to find people in my age group who still speak fluent Urdu Hindi. It's
Right.
not that common, who are raised here. Definitely people who've come here later on, they do, but all of myself and my cousins all speak fluent Urdu. And it's like, people see us and they're like, how did that happen? We're like, well, we grew up in this bubble, community with all our, chachas, mamus, tayas, all these people. Plus, everyone was really into Bollywood and a lot of Pakistani drama. So seeing all that constantly, and it's funny that a lot of the movies that came out at that time, American movies, I'd never seen them. But you can ask me any Shah Rukh Khan movie, yeah, I've seen it.
So you're a Shah Rukh Khan fan, I see.
No, not at all. I'm an Amir Khan fan. I love
Oh.
everything Amir Khan has done forever. He was my first. What was that? That movie, Hum Hai Rahi Pyar Ke.
Right.
That was my
His debut
favorite
movie.
Yes.
No,
I
not
love
debut,
that
not
movie.
debut. It's with
It was the
Juhi
second
Chawla. Right.
Yeah, yes, that one, and then the other one with Salman Khan that he had.
Andaz
I'm
Apna
forgetting.
Apna.
Yes, that one. Those two movies I watched like a billion times each. So I am a big fan of his. I still am. So whatever movies he does, I make sure to watch. And like Akshay Kumar, another favorite of mine. Like I love his movies.
I think he's the
Especially
biggest
his,
superstar of India right now. Everyone just loves
and
him.
especially his social message movies, like Padman and Toilet. I was like, these are movies that are necessary. I'm
Right,
so happy that he made them,
right.
because, and I watched them and I was like, this is not offensive in any way or form. This is a good thing to tackle. And then before that, even when he made that OMG, oh my God,
Oh my God.
excellent movies. And I was like, these are great. So we grew up in this. That's why we were so connected with India and Pakistan, is because we were watching more of their things. It's later on in life when we kind of all went into our separate college and separate ways that we were like, oh wait, we live in this country. Why are we mentally living somewhere else when we live here? So when I got to college, that was when my like awakening happened, in a sense that I met people, because college is not, I don't know how it is in India or Pakistan, but I know, like, talking to my husband who grew up in Pakistan, he's like, college is something you have to do. There really
Right.
is, if you can afford it, and if you have to do it. It's not like
That's right.
you know,
It's
a
not an
choice.
option. Like over
Exactly.
here, when we are studying, like right from our
Hmm.
ninth standard, we are basically preparing ourselves to enter a certain college. We are mentally
Hmm.
prepared. Okay, in ninth
Exactly.
standard, we have to do this much. We have to get these many marks. In 10th is boards, so we have to do well so that we can get the desired subject in 11th. 11,
Exactly.
12th, we have to prepare to get into the kind of college, be it medical, engineering,
Yes,
normal arts. But it has to be there. Like you
it
have to
has to
go
be
to
done.
college.
I
We
know,
cannot
just to
take a
stress.
leap year and just go
Yeah,
and have fun.
the leap year concept is very foreign to, I know, like, the South Asian community. I know, like, my mom even said that when children are like in Lucknow, the big I think school, not even college, is Lamatinier, and she's like, when kids are born, that's when the parents sign up. And I was like,
Yeah,
so when do they start school? She's like, 4, 3, 4, and I was like, so they have to sign up that advance? She's like, yes, because the waiting list and all the hoops you have to jump through to get even admission, the
right.
thought of admission is so much work, and then you have to reach out to people. So in over here in college, you met people who wanted to be there, and then you could even tell the kids immediately who were forced to be there because their parents said you have to do this. So that's when I saw that, oh, I shouldn't, maybe I should look at some different types of subjects that you couldn't explore. And I really had no idea what I wanted to do in life, honest to goodness, because of the upbringing I had. And again, I don't blame my mom. It was just what she was. Even though in her own household education was big, in my dad's household it was not such a big thing. So you and you can imagine, she is the oldest bhabhi, and kind of setting the stage, and me being the oldest girl, it was given, the image was given to her that if you educate this girl, she's gonna run off and just live somewhere in the mountains. So something like
Wow.
very negative will happen. So she kind of, pushed me down a little bit. But again, I don't blame her at all. So if she's
Right.
listening, I love you. I do. But but because of that upbringing and that societal pressure based on put on her by her peer group, she kind of discouraged me in doing things that I could have. I was invited by I had written a few poems. I was a very poetic person. I used to write poetry and essays. I was invited by Congress, the American Congress, to come speak at one of the opening sessions of Congress
Wow.
many years ago. I still have the letters, so the invitation and letter and everything. And the only thing was, they were like, well, you have to pay your own way to come, but we want you to come and speak and say the same poem in public. And she said, no, 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 forget it. And I was like, one of my biggest regrets in life. I was like, I could have spoken in front of Congress. That would have been a thing to look back on forever. But I mean, again, I don't blame her. It was just, whatever society kind of forces on you. And likewise, I think our society every day is changing
Right.
constantly. So when I got to college and I explored different classes, and I reached out and found some interest in like psychology, I found interest in social work and sociology. And it wasn't the sad thing is, I would have gone further in that. Like I would have happily become probably a psychotherapist at this point. But again, society.
Right.
And I've done episodes on Log Kya Kahenge, and like on things on my radio show, like this problem needs to really stop, like really badly.
Right.
um, when I was thinking about doing psychology masters and going beyond, the standard thing was the classic thought that, oh, jo log ko padhna nahi hai, wo psychology padhte hain. And it was like,
That's
I hate
wow.
that.
Because
Yeah.
over here, so I had a very similar story. When I was in my school, I wanted to be a doctor, and
Mhm.
again, since the childhood, I was like, there was constant thing, meri beti doctor banegi, she's going to be a doctor.
Yes.
And it kind of
Yes.
stayed with me, and I really wanted to be a doctor. I studied for it, I gave my entrance exam, and I kind of left behind with few numbers, and I didn't want to do it after that because the study itself is so tiring.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
took psychology in my college, and I completed it as my bachelor's. And right after that, I did my human rights, and then I went into criminology. So it's
Hmm.
very different over here. If you're taking psychology, yes, if you want to be a doctor, people think that, oh, doctor nahi bani, so psychology le liya,
Yes.
kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
understand.
That thought process I think really needs to stop, because now there's a big push for mental health, that
Exactly.
you should, and I'm glad that there are, not just of course in Hollywood, but even in Bollywood, people are speaking out that mental health is very important. Self-care, going to therapy, seeking a counselor is not a bad thing. Doesn't mean
Right.
and wait, the standard search was, no, you're crazy, that's why you need to go see this person.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, no, you might just be struggling, you might have anxiety or bipolar. There's so many
We
details to
associate
it.
things with the psychology, we associate with being pagale. So
Yes,
it creates a lot of difficulty. No one understands, like small issues like
exactly.
depression and anxiety also falls under it. It also needs
Yeah.
therapy. It will be better if you take help. Yeah.
Yes. But it's changing. I hope for the better. I hope so.
Yeah.
I really do. So after I got my bachelor's in psychology, and then after that, the thought, to go into masters. But then I was like, I don't know which direction I want to go. Do I want, because technically with a psychology bachelor's, you can go any direction. You
Right.
can go whichever way you want to go. So I was thinking. In the meantime, I got a job. So I was like, okay, I have a full-time job. I was working, and in that interim, my parents were like, well, Farheen, we have a nice guy for you. And I was like, oh, well, fun then. Great.
Ding.
Oh, okay, good. Let's okay, fine. And then they were like, well, you're 23, we have to start looking. Doesn't mean you have to get married right away, but start looking. It's a long process. ऐसा तो नहीं होता ना, just कोई आया and हो गई शादी.
Right.
So then my to be husband, my current husband, he drove 4.5 hours from Pennsylvania. He was doing his residency at that time. So he went to school in Pakistan, did his MBBS in Pakistan, and then got residency in the US. So then came here, and he drove 4.5 hours to my house and came to meet me. And immediately my first impression was, this person is boring as anything, such a dry personality. No. I said no. I was like, no. Like, he came, spent the whole day with us. He left, and my parents were like, beta, why you can't drive back? Why don't you, they got him a hotel room. They're like, you stay over there and then come back for breakfast. And then, go off from there. Don't drive,
They had
late
this
night.
whole plan. You don't know. They
Yeah,
already
yeah, yeah.
wanted him to stay.
Basically. And of course, my dad be like, doctor hai. Yes,
Of course.
Dundee. Of course. And then if you think about, he was thinking from the point of view, that you'll never really need to worry. It's a field that does continue, and
Yes.
is constantly needed. So he's like, I that's a father's goal, is to make sure that you don't ever have to worry, and I'm in peace that you don't, thank goodness, worry. But when I was like, but he's so dry. And he met me, my dad, my mom, my brother was there, my nanny was there, my sister wasn't there, she was at college then, and my younger brother was there. So a good full family, and just him. And
Right.
I was like, this person is dry. I cannot see myself in the rest of my life with this thing. No, thank you. And then my dad was like, he's such a nice guy, such a good cultured boy. And my mom was like, what a sweet, yeah, he was nice. He bought a cake.
They already made him the
Oh yeah,
son-in-law in the mind, like in the
yeah,
back of the mind, they
yeah,
already
yeah.
pictured your
My
wedding.
mom was, I think, planning our wedding at that point in
Yeah,
her
yeah, of
head.
course.
Yeah. And she was like, and they were like, okay, yeah, no, wait till tomorrow, talk to him again tomorrow, maybe, sometimes she's like, my mom's like, you were nervous, I'm sure he's nervous too, because this is a weird thing. I mean, it's not, I mean, now I see things have changed. People know each other, they get to, kind of hang out, and it's very different, which I think
Right.
is better. But then, I mean, this is almost 11 years ago, 12 years ago at this point. So
Right.
it's like, times have changed. So then he came back the next morning, and of course, we were both a little less nervous, and we talked more, one-on-one. Like, my mom and dad made sure that we were in the dining room. They were all in the separate part of the house. I mean, they were there, but not really there.
Of course, not
Just
there,
like a
there.
Bollywood movie,
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah.
but not really there.
Were you serving tea and biscuit also?
I served tea 6 times to that
Oh my
man.
god. Complete Bollywood movie. Done.
I was like, this is so. And I told my dad, I was like, can I not serve tea? It looks so stupid. He's like, and then of course, Fareen beta, can you bring tea? I'm like, oh, dad, why would
The
you do
only
that?
thing left was like samosa khaiye.
Ah.
Biscuits khaiye.
So then it was funny because then after he left, um, I thought the meeting didn't go well at all. I was like, this is not gonna happen. I told my parents, I was like, look, I mean, we spoke, we hung out a bit, we talked. Seems like a nice guy, but I don't think he really would want to say yes to me himself. And then we got the phone call. I think like 2 days later that his dad called my dad and said that can my son continue talking to your daughter a bit if you're okay with that. Because keeping in mind that again, a standard traditional household, we don't
Right.
really have a lot of these kind of meetings. And my dad was I think very forward thinking for the time. He's like, I don't mind if they even hang out. They can
Right.
hang out, maybe go out and go
On a
go to a
date or
movie.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, not saying the date word, the D
Of
word was a
course.
bad word to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they
can-
can go.
can-
It can be a
they
date
can
without the date being mentioned.
go. Yes,
Yeah.
they can go out. So then I think his father-in-law was very happy my father-in-law was very happy to hear that, because even though my father-in-law was a very forward-thinking man. For someone who was born and raised in Pakistan and lived his whole life there, he was very forward-thinking in this regard. He's like, well, they have to spend the rest of their life together.
I think all the
I mean,
guys, all the men of your family was always very forward thinking, right?
thank goodness.
Yeah, thank
Goodness.
goodness.
Thank goodness for. I think life would have gone very differently if they weren't.
Absolutely.
I mean, and again, the thought was, the unwritten rule was like, look, you know the rules, try not to break them, and
Right.
we're okay with a lot of things if you don't break them. Let me turn this light off. I don't know, this light in my computer keeps going there. It's like annoying me. It's like a bright light in my
No
face.
worries.
So then my husband connected with me via Facebook, and that was like the thing. Facebook was like,
Of
ooh,
course.
the best way to
It
connect.
was the
Instagram
it
was
thing.
another.
Yeah,
There was no Instagram then. So then he sent me a request on Facebook, and then we were chatting, and we even had some arguments over Facebook, like certain things that he wouldn't wanted, and I was like, sorry, can't deliver, not happening. Like he's from a very religious family, so he did prefer hijab, and I was like,
Right.
not happening, man, unless I want to, not happening. And he was like, oh, okay. And then but we kind of fear that we on the same on values we are pretty similar. So even if we have a little things here and there, but we're generally the same in basic values. And then about a month after talking and then meeting, I think 1 or 2 more times, his dad called and said that my son would like to marry your daughter, and can we get things going, and then he asked, he's like, is your family one of those people that needs to have a nikah done right away, or would you be okay with just our word is our honor type thing? And my dad was like, I don't believe in this idea of having a nikah and then sitting on it for years, because in Islam technically the nikah is it. I know culturally we made that nikah, then rukhsati, then all these other events, but Islamically the nikah means you are husband and wife.
Right.
So my dad was always for the thought, he's like, why would you tell someone that you are married to this person now, you can do whatever you want, but no, now you can't for 1 year or 2 years and just wait. So he's like, it's a mixed message. So my dad was always from the thought that nikah, and then within like a month or so, or even the same day, just jao, apne ghar jao, go be in your family, in your house.
Right.
No reason to prolong this issue unless it's like, people who are marrying someone internationally, and then that's just a waiting
And
period.
during that time frame, you mentioned you got a job, and right after that, you met your would-be husband, started talking to him, and everything. So,
Mhm.
did that point ever came up about the job? Did you guys had a discussion that
Mhm.
You see, in Indian households, whenever we talk about marriages over here, it's very specifically we have to mention, the girl would like to continue
Yes.
working after the marriage. It's
Yes.
not an unsaid rule. You have to mention it if you want your girl to get married
Yeah.
and go into a family. It's like kind of you have to tell them what you want or
Announce
ask
it.
them. Yes.
Yeah. No. It's, I think, pretty well now. Of course, now things are drastically different, but even then, you had to kind of let them know that they prefer working. Luckily, my husband's mom, who was never able to get the education she wanted, like she has a bachelor's, but she wanted to become a doctor, and she never was able to. So because of her society, and again, you add 40 years more
Right.
background into that. And so my sister-in-law is actually, so my husband's sister is a professor. So she's a professor. My brother-in-law is a quality assistant for, this. And then his wife, so my husband's Bobby, is also a doctor. So this is a family that was very pro women working. And
Right.
they said, it's up to you. So my husband said to me, he's like, it's up to you. You want to work? You can. You don't
Yeah.
want to work? You don't have to. It's completely your decision, and no one can tell you otherwise. If anyone ever comes to you and says that, does your husband not let you work? No, he said, go work. I just don't want to sometimes.
Right.
So it's completely my choice, which I found refreshing for coming from a Pakistani born and raised man in that time, and who'd only been in the US for at that point 2 years, 2 or 3 years because of residency in that. So I was like, okay, that's a very, and this is all discussions we had before we even said yes to each other. So
Right.
I was like, oh, okay, so I can choose to work or not choose to work. That's my choice. And he's like, completely your choice. And I was like, okay, good. And then, so that was never a problem. And I kept working up until I think a month before my wedding. Once we got married, and then I think, yeah, we got married in April, and the following April I had my first son. it was not a long wedding.
The
In
honeymoon period
hindsight,
got over quite fast.
no, it was pretty fast. And in hindsight, now I tell everyone that no, please take that time. You do need it to grow as a couple. Living together, live the honeymoon, and then that engagement period is always very fun and pretty, and everything's magical and flowers and clouds and all that. But when living together, learning each other's habits, you do
Right.
need that time. I would say if there's no rush to have children, I would say take a good at least 2 years just to get to
Yeah.
know each other, travel together, live together, learn each other's habits. I don't, of course, I don't regret my children at all, but it's like, in hindsight, like, okay,
Right.
we were young, we could have taken some time off. Um, but I had my first son the day before our first anniversary. So I told my husband, I
Wow.
was like, look, I've given you the best wedding present forever. So you can never top it, ever. Like ever. You can try, you can give me everything, but I gave you your first child on the day before our first child.
Amazing. You will always have the upper hand
I
now.
do. I use it every time. I use it every time. And now I have something new which I'll get to. I was like, you gave me COVID. Now thank you. So thank you for that too.
Yes. We'll touch on that topic.
Mhm.
So once your son
So-
was born, so now we are talking about a very completely different household from the one that you were born in and your husband was
Mhm.
born in and brought up. And the cultures was there, the restrictions were there. Now you two people have come together and you're staying together. You have a kid now. So there must be a difference of upbringing, if I may say. The kind of
Yes.
teachings and what you tell about the world, what to do, what not to do. So how things
Yeah.
change on that perspective.
Well, basically, because I had the insight of already being American. So I knew kind of what the world is here. My husband did not. So then he still there are many times where he says, I never knew this. And I was like, oh, you didn't? Like simple examples of he had no idea. I know, like in India and Pakistan, where the kids stay in the same class, but the teacher switches, right?
Right.
The teachers leave. In ours, the kids switch. So the teacher stays in the same class.
Yes.
It's opposite.
Right. Right.
So I remember when he learned that, he was like, what? Why? What? What? That makes no sense. And I was like, that's just always the way. So we could be a comedy show in our house of just like comparing, culture
Things.
differences.
Right.
Because like, you didn't know that? No. How did you not? And then he'll tell me things about, he'll talk to me sometimes as if I'm raised in Pakistan or India. And he's like, oh, you kabhi nahi suna ye? I was like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he tells me, he's like, you should call, people back home and ask them like, oh, kya kaam wale tang kar rahe hain ya nahi? And I was like, I don't care if kaam wale tang karenge. I don't, what, what? Why would I even ask that? Doesn't make any difference because I don't have any kaam wale who are tanging me. So it's a very interesting conversation. But yeah, when we were raising our kid, it came to that point. We were like, okay, I think we agreed on most things. And of course it was, and he did, and I was worried that he wouldn't step up with helping with the baby, but he actually did. He was never the one to say, oh, I'm not changing the diaper, or I can't get, milk or whatnot and everything. So he was very helpful in that. And then also he made sure to give time. Like, how in the beginning, the first 6 weeks, it's just very tough for women. And I had an emergency C-section. So it was not planned. I was very big on all natural birth and being the best, natural type person. But of course, sometimes there's
Right.
different plans happening. And when I was in labor for almost 16 hours and the baby's heart rate was dropping, my doctor came in and she said, no, I think we have to operate immediately. And then it was like stat. It was like one of those TV shows, like, people walking in, wheeling. It was scary. My nanny and my mom were there and they were just like, oh,
Freaking
gloves
out.
and everything.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
freaking out. And then so it wasn't a very standard way of having a baby. I mean, it's done every day countless times, but in your own mindset it wasn't standard. And it
Right.
was the first time in my family, immediate family, that anyone had a C-section. So
So it
it
was
was
even
like
a bigger deal. Yes.
it was a bigger deal. And then all these care procedures after it, because with emergency C-section, a planned C-section is again planned, so you
Right,
can
right.
prepare for a lot of things. Emergency is like, okay, sorry, here you go, take this. And it's a very fast surgery because they have to like really, it's very critical. So after that, we were at my apartment. My mom and dad were coming and going. They lived an hour away, but they were coming and going daily. And then at one point, I think on like day 4 or 5 of my husband being at work and then me not being able to get up fast enough to go take care of my son because it's the pain and everything. So I asked him, I was like, do you think it's okay if I can go home for until I feel better? He never said no. He was like, yeah. He's like, I think that's a good idea. He's like, I'll come visit you on the weekends. I
Right.
think it's better if you stay with your parents because your mom's there, your sister's there, they can help out. Your brother's there. There's more family, of course, around. My grandmother was there, so it was like, it helped out. And my parents set up like my brother's bedroom. They like kicked him out of it. They're like, this is your sister's room now. This is the baby's room, and it was nice because early in the morning when babies wake up like 4 or 5 a.m., my nanny would be up for morning prayers, and she's like, oh, give me the baby. And he's tiny, so she would happily sit with him for like 3 or 4 hours in the morning
Right.
easily. And it was much needed to have that support, not just from my family, but from him and his family. They were like, oh no, good decision, go back to your parents' house, it's perfectly fine. I know it's not a very common thing, but it was like they were like very happy to, because usually you see the mom or the dad coming to your place, but they were like, no,
Right.
look, you just stay there because you have everything there, that's your house still. So that really helped. And then we were making a trip, I believe when my son was 10 months old, we were making a trip to Pakistan. And the day of our flight, I was like, you know what, I don't feel well. Took a pregnancy test and it was positive. And I was like, well, there we go.
Oh, wow.
And my doctor had told me specifically, she's like, try not to get pregnant because you've had an emergency C-section. Usually your body needs longer to heal. And I was like, well, then we've just kind of tossed a wrench. And my husband was like, what? I was like, it's your fault. I said, this is your fault, not me. So then on our trip, we told my mother-in-law. She was more freaked out. She's like, oh my goodness. And they were like, be careful with it. You know how sometimes water
Yes.
doesn't suit people and things. So they were being extra careful. They're like, we don't want it. And this is like very new pregnancy. And they're like, we don't want anything to go wrong. And
Yeah, it's like the
and I
first
did get,
trimester is anyways
yeah.
very difficult.
And I did get
Yeah.
sick. I think we had Chinese food or something. And I did get really
I
sick.
think the
And
good
I
part
couldn't.
was your husband was is a doctor, so I
Yes.
think a lot of things got taken care of in that way.
He did, yeah. He was helpful, and he's like, just drink Sprite if you feel sick, or all the standard things. We had a good trip, and everything was fine. Came back, and then had my second son. So my kids are my older two are 15 months apart. So it's like having twins, but not
Yeah,
really. So it's harder.
really.
And then with those back-to-back pregnancies and kids, I was like, I don't think I can manage working anymore. It's too much work, and to balance this, just to balance the kids and the house, and not the house as in cooking, cleaning, just making sure there's food or there's something happening. My husband's like, if you are worried about childcare, we can look into it. I was like, look, if we even got childcare, that'll be most of my salary, because
Right.
if you just look at the big picture, even if it's his salary or my salary, doesn't matter. It's like basically I'm working for free, so what's the point? And we're comfortable, so let me just stop working. And then that stop working became like forever.
But you're doing a
Sometimes
lot more right now, so I don't think so that was a bad decision.
that all happened much later. I'll tell
Yeah.
you in
Yeah, yeah.
in segments, Tarushi, because it happened in then after that, my husband, we had two kids, and when my youngest was 8 months old, he got an offer to work at Mayo Clinic, which is one of the most renowned hospitals in the world. And he's like, and this is in the middle of nowhere. So
Right.
I was like, and me growing up in this metro, city and suburb, I was like, do we have to? And he's like, this is a really good thing for my career. And I was like, okay, fine. But the contract was for 3 years. We moved. We lived in the middle of nowhere. There was no place to eat or drink like desi food for 2 hours. You can imagine, like nothing.
Wow.
You had no options. um, there were Indian and Pakistani families living there, so you became really close knit. It didn't matter if you were from India, Pakistan, whatever your religion was, didn't matter. It was like, okay, you speak the same. Oh, you know Bollywood, I know Bollywood. That's enough. You eat biryani, I eat biryani. You like chai, I like chai. Good, we're friends. So it was very, it was a very close knit thing. But in hindsight, again, hindsight is a beautiful thing. It was a good time for us. The thing that we had missed out growing as a family in the beginning of our marriage, we grew in those 3 years. We
Right.
learned each other's habits really well. We couldn't really, it wasn't easy to just, pick up a suitcase and go home. There was no home to go to. My husband's brother and his family lived 2 hours away. So we did go to see them pretty often. We became very close to them. But my family was a 2 hour flight away. So it was
Right.
like, you have to learn to be self-sufficient, practice a lot of new recipes, figure out a lot of things on how to, make things work longer. If we had to get meat, like halal meat, we had to go, 2 hours away. So it's like how to make things last. We
Right.
learned a lot of that. And we grew as a family. We learned about each other. We learned about our kids. We learned what kind of parents we were, what kind of people we were. And in honesty, at that age is when I grew up. I became an adult then. I mean, I've
Right.
married 2 kids, but I'm still not an adult yet. And that was when I became an adult. That I was, again, in a very full household before. And if I was scared of anything at night or whatnot, I'd be like, okay, go to mom's room or, call my brother, be like, "Oh, I'm scared." Suddenly my husband would be on call at night and he's gone. And it's like, I'm the only person here and 2 kids and in the middle of nowhere. So I have to be more vigilant. I learned not to be scared of a lot of things because you could not leave me in a house alone before ever. Now it's like, okay,
Right.
this is just the situation. And you have to really, set your mind up that if something were to happen, I'm responsible for these children. So you know what? I have to be better prepared. So I would have a whole system at night. If he was going for a night shift, he'd leave the house. I'd close the garage. I'd lock the garage. Then I'd double check all the doors, double check all the windows, set the alarm, and be like, okay, we are safe. And I know a lot of people here believe in having a gun in the house. I don't, because I'm too scared that my kids will get a hold of it.
Yeah.
So I have a metal bat that sits around. I
I
can
think
beat
I
you.
think that must be a better option. Or with when you
Yeah.
go with Indian household, there's always Balin and
I have a
Jhadu.
Balin, I have a Balin, Jharu, fry pan, and a bat. So it's
Everything.
like,
We
okay.
have everything.
Yeah, but I learned not to watch too many things that would make my anxiety go up. So I
Right.
used to love watching, I don't know if you guys probably know that, Criminal Minds.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah, yeah.
TV show.
Yes, one of the
But
best ones though. I really
it is
loved
a
it. Yeah.
it's really good, but it really freaks me out because
It
they
yeah.
make it seem like, they haven't caught the murderer, so he's still out there doing his bad things.
Right,
So then I
right.
was like, you know what? I like this show, but I can't watch it because it makes my mind think of. I would hear even the slightest sound. Is someone trying to break in? Is someone? I was
Right.
like, you know what? This is not good for me. I'm just not gonna watch this anymore. And that really helped. So, but that made me grow up. It forced me to grow up and learn that, okay, this is my household. And then I also at that time kind of developed a backbone and was able to tell people that no, I don't agree with you, or I don't
Right.
like that idea. Before I was a very big people pleaser. I still am, but I was an extreme people pleaser in that I wanted to only talk about my thing. Okay, oh yes, I agree with you 100%. Now I'm more like, no, I don't agree with you, and that's fine.
I think that
And
that must be because also the kind of environment you were in a bubble where, like you said, you were there in a bubble. And that time you don't want to mess around with your relations, with your brothers, sisters, your family members. So it's kind of like, yes, Hanji, okay, Ji. And when you
yes,
grow old, you're living, at place at somewhere nowhere with your kids. You need to
yeah,
take a stand. You need to be
you
like,
do.
yes, I won't do this, or I won't say yes to this.
Yeah, and it makes you kind of like I said, grow into your own. That, oh, I am capable of doing certain things, and I'm not capable of doing certain things. So you really, I think living in an area where there's less comforts, at least for a year, everyone should do that,
Right.
because I think it really forces you to learn that, oh, I can actually do a lot of things that you never thought you could. And there was things that I thought I can never cook this ever. And then there was YouTube videos and I would just watch them and be like, oh, okay. Or it's just recipe websites. And be like, okay, so if I try this, sometimes it failed. Sometimes
Right.
it was a good success. And I was like, okay, so I can make these things. I kind of became a halwai in that time because I learned how to make like gulab jamun and chum chums and jalebi.
Well,
And I was
that's
like,
what
okay.
we all are learning these days in quarantine.
I'm like, I'm a halwai now. And then but after 3 years of living there, our oldest was turning 5 at that time. No, 4.5, 5. And I was like, well, he's gonna start school this year. um and I was like to my husband, I was like, do you think this is a good place? He loved his job. It was a good job, it was good pay, he was happy there. I was like, I'm not happy here. I'm really struggling of not having a community. I am struggling of not having, not just a fun community, but like a religious community nearby. I'm really struggling with that because I grew up with that and I need that. And I think if we don't give that to our kids, don't be surprised if down the road they don't connect with us or our culture, because they're not going to.
Right.
Because living here, they won't.
Right.
And that was hard for him to take in because, of course, he has family who live in rural areas. And I was like, well, I'm not going to talk about anyone else's kids, but I can tell you from growing up in a metro that did help. Having people like us around us did help. Being able to go to Jackson Heights in New York and see like, movie posters, like American movie posters next to Bollywood movie posters does help. It makes you see that, okay, you can be dual and it's fine. And so then we made the decision that, okay, let's start looking elsewhere to go. And we had a strict set of requirements. I mean, we could have very easily moved right back to the Northeast, close to my family, but the job market there was very saturated for him. Pays weren't good. And of course, it's very expensive living in the Northeast. So then we said, okay, let's pinpoint areas where there are metro cities, where there is a community, where there are mosques, and not just mosques, many types of mosques, and gurdwaras and mandirs. So you have a variety of people. And let's look and what can we fit into our budget. So we looked at California, we looked at Chicago, we looked at Dallas, we looked at Atlanta, Georgia, like these big cities. He had 2 job offers, from one from Atlanta, Georgia, and one from Dallas, Texas. And then we were like, okay, so where do we want to go? And growing up in the North, you have a very different image of the South. It's not as liberal or open-minded as the North is. So I was very hesitant about going to Texas. And I was like, this is going to be different. Are you sure, Ibrahim? And he's like, the job is better. And I was like, okay. And we looked, we reached out to a few of, because most mosques have websites to, or every place has a website, and they're like, you can contact this person. So I did reach out to a few people and asked them like, how's the community? And luckily, one of our family friends from Boston had moved here to Texas. And then so I reached out to her. I was like, okay, this is the best person I can ask who's actually lived up north and here. And she was like, no, it's really lovely. I do miss the North, but it's nice. The weather is good. Houses are nicer. You more family values. And so we made the decision to completely, just, and we have no family here. People are like, oh, do you have family here? I was like, nope, no one.
So
My
right
family,
now
all
you're living in which part?
Dallas. We're in Dallas,
Dallas.
Texas. Yeah.
And you've been
So
there since how long now?
it's going to be 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
Long time.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So we have no family here. Well, at the time we have no family here. That's close family. Now, like my husband's second cousin has moved here, and my sister's actually moving here end of this year. So it's like, okay, family's slowly coming, but we were like, because of the 3 years of having no one around, we were like, we can do it. We can be self-sufficient. I know a lot of people, when they think about moving from anywhere, they get scared because it's like, well, family's here.
Right.
Why would I move? Like, I have a lot of family members, cousins in New York who can't leave New York because they're like, well, everyone's here. How can we move? And because we were forced to move, again, that force kind of forced us to move to a place where 3 years, no one. And then we were like, okay, we can do it. We can move anywhere and make friends. We know we're pretty nice. We'll
Right.
invite people over. We'll have events and we'll make friends. It's okay. And we'll build our own community. So when we moved here to Dallas, it was different. Definitely, it was hot. It was very hot. And I know in like India, Pakistan, you guys are used to, lizards and chipkalis and all these things. Over here, I was not.
I like the fact that you said you people are used to it because yes,
You guys are used to it.
we
You're
are.
used to it.
Yeah, it's
Like-
kind of like a daily guest at our place. We're like, hey,
Yeah,
hi. Yeah.
And over here in the Northeast, the climate doesn't support their ecosystem, so they're not there.
Right.
In the South, there is not just lizards, there's snakes. There's
Oof.
there's like lizards that are this long, like a foot long lizards from beginning to end, and snakes are very common here.
Yeah.
And some are poisonous. Most are not, but some are very poisonous. Like rattlesnakes are very normal here. It's like, okay, the deadliest snakes in the world all live in
Wow.
Texas. Thank you. And when we moved here, I was very hesitant, scared. And you do hear up north that people here are more racially charged. People here are more unaccepting of different types of
That's
people.
true. Yeah.
So when we moved here, I was again very scared. I was like, Ibrahim, let's give ourselves like a year or two. Let's see if if. And he had
Yeah.
a new 2-year contract. So he was like, okay, 2 years. If we absolutely do not like it here, we can move. And so we made the plan that okay, let's see. We moved here. We met wonderful people. So we of course we met both types. We met people who were of the inkling that you guys are outsiders and should leave. And then I did get told many times, oh, you speak really good English. And I was like, yeah, man, I grew up here.
Right.
Every time they're like, oh, you speak wonderful English. And I was like, I grew up in New York
I
and
think
Boston.
it happens kind of with every person who has roots of anywhere besides America.
Yes.
They are like
Yeah.
very people of the American culture are very surprised by their command on language and how well you speak
Yeah.
English. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Even my husband, who definitely has more of an accent in English, he gets told all the time, he's like, oh, I'm so surprised, doctor, you speak really good English. He's like, yeah, because I live here. I have to. I have to speak a little bit of English.
I
I
think
should.
they think that the adaptation rate is very slow for us, but which is not.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, my mom speaks great English because in her school in La Martini and Aligarh, it was like English was, you had in English medium, you had to learn it.
Right, right,
And the schools my husband went to as well, they were all English medium schools. So sure,
yeah,
you might have like a little bit of the British touch and some words
right,
interchange here and there, but
right.
overall you can communicate and understand
Of course, the
each other.
basic language is the same.
Yes,
We learn the
like we're
same thing.
talking right
Right,
now. I don't think I'm confused, and I don't think you're confused at how we're talking to each other. I was like,
right.
we're talking right
True.
now. So it's just relative, but we did meet good community here. We made good friends. We found a good mosque that we are part of, and community members and people were very nice and welcoming. So we were like, after about a year and a half, we were like, should we just stay? And at that time, my husband has done a specialist. He's a kidney doctor, but he does not like the bureaucratic system that he was a part of, which is very different to here because I think because of his upbringing, he really was told that, look, you only have this talent because God gave you this talent.
Right.
And you need to serve, your family and yourself, but you should also remember that if Allah has given you this talent of giving shifa or health to other people, then you should also help people
Right.
in not in the best way. Not the ones who have, can only come see you in clinic.
Right.
So he was not happy when his boss, and he likes to actually he'll talk to patients, like he'll find their stories, he'll spend time with the patient asking them, like if a patient comes and says, I'm having this trouble and I'm on this depression medication. Okay, why are you on that medication? Well, because my son doesn't talk to me and I really feel, have you tried talking to your son? No, because I don't think that's, and like he'll get to the root of their problem. He's actually been able to successfully get people off of medication, which his bosses didn't like. They were like,
Of course, because
keep
the
keep them on the medication.
rate of medicine is going to go down. Of course,
Yes.
people are going to be upset.
So they weren't happy and they were like, you're spending too much time with each patient, Dr. Abbas. We need you to be faster. And he's like, how long should I spend with the patient? He's like, 5 minutes or less. He's like, 5 minutes? No. And he was spending, I mean, like 30 minutes per patient or 40 minutes talking to them. So then he had to go through this decision where, I mean, he'd spent 2 years learning a craft specifically to get a job like that, and had, worked at Mayo Clinic with that same, craft. And now he was at the point, he was like, should I just go become a general doctor and work for a hospital instead of a private clinic? And I said to him, I was like, look, this is your decision. I'm not going to say, I need you to work this because we need this kind of money or that. If
Right.
you're not happy going to work and you are the main breadwinner in the house, then what's the point? So I need you to do whatever you want. And I think that helped him because he's like, okay, the person in my immediate life, my wife is supportive. She doesn't care. He did have a little pushback from his mom because, of course, specialist is a different symbol
Right.
in India and Pakistan. Like, oh, my son or daughter is a specialist
Right. Right.
versus, general. So she was not too happy. She still tells him every time, like, go back. And he's like, no, I'm happy doing. So now he's a general practitioner, but he's happy. He's like, I'm much more happier. I work for a hospital system where they just have these systems, and he's like, they don't bother me if I spend time with patients. My nurses are happy. I'm happy. So what's the point of? And I was like, there is no point if you're happy and you feel like you're doing, and it gives him enough time. Tarushu, that he actually volunteers at at a free clinic as well. So now everything is closed, of course, because of COVID,
Yeah.
but they're doing online medicine for that as well. Um, Basically, every month, maybe twice a month, he was volunteering at a free clinic that our mosque runs for 2 hours, and he's like, I can do that because I have the time. And you know what? I am earning my living by doing my paid job, but then I'm also, giving back to my community and giving, gaining some good points with the big guy upstairs by
Right.
giving back to the community in a free way that I can help out. So I was like, if things are going well, just leave it. Don't. If you're happy doing
You know,
this, I am never bothered by.
when you guys were there, when he was working in Mayo Clinic, and you guys were there in middle of nowhere, I'm
Hmm.
very interested to know in that particular time frame. You know, your kids are growing up,
Hmm.
and that was a time when you were there, your kids were there, and they were learning things about you,
Hmm.
about the culture, about
Yeah.
the American culture, about Islam. They were learning quite a lot of things just being among you two,
Hmm.
right? There was no one else to tell them, to teach
Nope.
them. And then was there any kind of let's say not I won't say pressure, but yes, a constant thing from the family side that, you know what, you guys are staying there, you need to teach them these things, you need to tell them these things, otherwise they will never learn. Like, one of the reasons of you shifting from there to Texas was
Hmm.
so that they can seek different cultures. But
Yeah.
right before that, there must have been like a base. You need to set it, you need to tell
Hmm.
them that this is the kind of world that is out there. Was it difficult to
Yeah.
do it when you didn't have any family help over there?
Yes and no. Again, it's that whole force structure. It was difficult because, of course, it would be easier to fall back and tell my son, like, oh, go to Nani and get stories from her. But
Right.
Nani's hours away, and Dadi's in a different part of the world. So then it was like, in Islam, there's a belief that the first school is your mother's arms. So that literally became me. Like,
Right.
okay, I am the first school. Okay, fine. And and if you look at it historically, I mean, people try to, they say, oh, the father brings religion and whatnot into the household. If you look, it's all the mother. Whatever the mother
I
follows, the kids will
absolutely
mimic.
agree with it.
So
Yes.
if you, in your family, if there is every morning puja, your kids will do that puja. If the dad is not there, if no matter how much, and I've seen this many thousands of times, whatever the mother does is what the kids
It's
will
kind of a
follow.
transference from the
Yes.
mother to the child. Yes.
Yes. So then I was upon me. So then I would sit there with my son, and I have videos of it. I was like, okay, Allah, ek, how many of this, how many of that. So I bought videos. I found YouTube channels. Again, thank goodness that these things were available at that
Right.
time. YouTube had a lot of videos, and I was like, okay, let's put this. Here's, you can watch, your Sesame Street for a while, but let's just watch this 5-minute video here and there. And I don't believe in, like, shoving things down kids' throats, because then I really feel, and that's for everything, not just religion, anything. If you shove it too much, then kids will rebel, and they will talk back,
Exactly.
and they'll be like, I don't want this, I hate this, so I was very, very, coaxing, like, okay, how about you sit and watch this, how about you do this with me, how about we do this, okay, Amma's doing namaz, how about you sit next to me, don't even do anything, just sit there. So normalizing it. So when I had to accept that role, that's when it became easier. And then that's when I said we need to move, was when I was like, my role kind of ends here now. The kid has too many questions that I don't have
Right.
answers to. And I think he's gonna need more of a school environment where they can talk about these things. I know there's a lot of Islamic schools here. I'm not a big proponent of Islamic schools or even private schools in general. I'm all for public education. So, because I grew up in public education, I was like, I didn't turn out a horrible person. I didn't run off and take drugs and
Right.
marry
Absolutely.
someone and have kids out of I was like, I'm pretty okay. And my siblings, all my family members, even my husband's cousins who grew up in the US, all went to public school. So we're like, I,
Right.
I don't see anything wrong with it. So my son went to we when we were moving, we were looked into public schools in the area. We chose one that had, and over here they're divided not by you can't just get into any public school, you have to live in that area.
Right.
So we looked at houses and whatever we needed to have rentals, apartments in that area that had the good schools. So we rented a small house, and our son started school in a good school district. And then there are Sunday schools that are Islamic based, which are very short, they're like 2 or 3 hours long. So then we signed him up for that as well, level 1, and that was only 3 hours a week. And then he went to school 5 days a week. And we were like, that's enough. I'm not for, constantly morning, noon, and night
Right.
Islamic knowledge, because again, you're living in this country. Accept that you live here. Just accept the fact that
Right.
you do live here.
Yes.
So it's not wrong to learn about here. You
It's
should
actually
learn
very important, that's the country. I mean, they
Yeah.
should know what's
And
going there, what's the
and
culture like.
and that's for everywhere. If my kids were growing up in India, I'd say to them, like, you need to learn how to speak in Hindi, because you just have to. That's just the language. Sure, no English, no Urdu if you can, but also no Hindi. If you're growing up in China, like I have cousins who speak English, Urdu, and Chinese because they went to schools in China. It's like, okay,
Right.
that's just, you have to do that. You have to learn. So and you need to know where you're living. You can't live in a bubble. it's
True.
it's it's a very common thing here for people to raise their kids in bubbles. And I pray that you see the light before it's too late, because there is a point every child goes through this. It might not happen in elementary school or middle school or high school. It could even happen in college, where they will kind of question
Right.
everything and anything you've taught them or want to teach them. They will question it, and then you'll have another problem on your hands.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my
Yeah.
kid is rebelling. And it's like, but I did everything I did. I made sure they were in this school, this environment, they wore this clothes. No, let
Right.
them flourish a little bit. You know how they say, patang mein dheel dena, like, let them have
True.
that, pull it back if you
Let
need
them
to, but
discover the world.
yeah,
Right.
you have to. You really have to. So when we moved here, there's a lot of people in our community who are very, very pro Islam and Islamic knowledge only. I am friends with them. I don't agree with everything, but I don't make that a reason to be in arguments. I'm like, look, my belief, your belief. At the end of the day, we should be okay with each other.
This was part 1 of episode 6. I hope you like this podcast. Please do drop a comment if wherever you are listening allows you to. I will be back with part 2 on Thursday at 2 p.m. Till then, stay safe, stay in, help someone in need, and be kind. This is Misty signing off.